Hey folks, welcome into the News 12 Now Desk. Thanks for joining us here. It is Thursday, June 1st. We have made it to June, 6th month of the year. Kind of feels like 2023 is flying by a little bit, but here we are, about 11 o'clock here, and we are talking about a couple stories that we brought you yesterday. Wanted to talk about them a little bit more and give you the full interviews here. Before we do that, wanted to remind you guys real quick how to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done that already. Here on YouTube, just search WRDW News 12, and you come right here and you can click this little link and just hit subscribe, and then you can watch live right here. We stream every day, multiple times a day, so if you want to check that out, we do all of our we do morning headlines on there, we do press conferences, breaking news, all sorts of stuff. A little bit later on this morning, in about 45 minutes, we'll stream Senator Lindsey Graham speaking on the debt ceiling bill, coming up a little bit later on. So first, though, we want to get into this crazy story from yesterday. If you haven't seen this video, let me pull it up for you real quick. A woman's car caught fire on I-20. She was on her way to work last week when things took a dangerous turn. This is a Lincolnton woman who says she's lucky to be alive, thanking a good Samaritan and the Lord above for sparing her life. Our Hallie Turner talked to her about the scary moments on the road. So we'll play this story, and then we'll come back and we'll play the full interview with this woman. You got to hear what she's got to say.
This is the 2004 Navy Toyota Camry, just moments before melting away with Candy Smith inside.
I felt no heat, no warmth. Didn't even have my air on. I felt nothing until I stopped and realized I was on fire.
And this is the car right after she got out.
Turned it off, grabbed my purse, jumped out of the car, barefooted everything. I look and my hood is melting, and I see flames.
Coming face to face with the one thing she fears the most, flames.
Our youngest son, Jed, died in a house fire on February 12th, 2020. I hate fires with a passion.
She says her fear was replaced by peace thanks to a good Samaritan.
That sounds crazy, but there was a peace. This gentleman comes running up with his fire extinguisher. Malik, he's from North Charleston. He's a truck driver, and he was my angel.
Candy lost another son last year, waiting on a lung transplant.
When Walker got COVID, literally people all over the world would message us and pray for us. We had hotel rooms paid for. We would have gas money sent to us.
She says Khalid stopping was a reminder of the Lord's direct protection she's experienced through the good and bad.
Could have been a lot worse. Again, God's faithfulness, God's timing, and He cleared the road, and all I could do is thank Him. Thank you for your mercy. Thank you for your grace and for loving me.
In Augusta, Hallie Turner on your side.
So there you go. You can just see the video. You can hear the appreciation in her voice. And now we'll play the full sound that Hallie did with her. It's about 11 minutes long, but it is really good. So we'll go ahead and play that and let you have a listen, and then we'll come back and continue on to the next story.
I was headed to work on I-20, and my check engine light came on. My oil pressure light came on, and I'm thinking, when I get to work, I probably need to check my oil and just make sure everything's good. And then I saw smoke coming out from under my hood and thinking, nope, I'm running hot. And nothing, no gauges showed I was running hot. So I said, I need to pull over. And as I pull over and come to a stop, I look and my hood is melting and I see flames. I had no clue I was on fire. I turned it off, grabbed my purse, jumped out of the car, barefooted everything, and a truck driver, Khalid Bey, pulled up behind me with his fire extinguisher and began to put out the fire, or tried to, and tried until we saw the fire trucks come.
Tell me what was going through your mind. I mean, you're just going to work. It's just, what day was this?
This was Tuesday.
So we can go to your side, it's normal Tuesday.
Yep.
Anything out of the ordinary with the car?
Nope, nothing. Just headed to work, and it, just like I said, it started, the check engine light came on, and when I started seeing smoke, I'm thinking, this doesn't look good. So I was just pulling over just to check to make sure everything was okay, and not realizing I was on fire. And Khalid said I was on fire coming down the road.
And you didn't even know?
I had no clue.
And so, but fire has been a part of your story.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about some of the loss that you've had in the past couple of years.
Our youngest son, Jed, died in a house fire on February 12th, 2020. And I hate fires with a passion. And then our second son passed away May 21st of last year with COVID, awaiting a lung transplant in Tampa. And you know, there are just so many good people in the world where, you know, we tend to focus on the bad all the time and woe is me, but God is faithful. He is so good. I felt like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego being protected, and I never knew I was on fire. Through Khalik stopping was, to me, a miracle, and giving me peace and comfort and just letting me know it's going to be okay. When Jed died, the youngest, you know, people in the community that we didn't know reached out. When Walker got COVID, literally people all over the world would message us and pray for us. We had hotel rooms paid for. We would have gas money sent to us. When Haley had little precious Maddie, Walker's baby, people just sent her gifts out of the blue, sent blankets, and just loved on us. We're nobody, but there are so many good people, and they need to be recognized. Again, Khalik, he's from North Charleston. He's a truck driver, and just, he was my angel.
So he wasn't, I mean, he was just going to work, just having a normal drive. I mean, and when you got out, was there anything like, oh my God, why is this happening to me? Did any of that go through your mind, or kind of, can you take us through those moments when you got out of your car?
When I got out, when I saw the hood melting in front of me and got out, I didn't really think that. It was, oh well, I love my car. And I know that sounds crazy, but there was a peace about me, and I knew that it was taken care of. And again, when this gentleman comes running up with his fire extinguisher and knowing, you know, there's things we can't fix, we can't do anything about. And when we fret over it and we worry about it, it makes us miserable. You know, I have a very deep faith in God and trust in God that He's got us. He's got me. He has every one of us in His hand. You know, that little song when we were kids, He's got the whole world in His hands. And He does. And we can't worry about tomorrow. We can't worry about today. Look for the good. Look for the blessings in life. Looking at the woe is me and the Eeyores doesn't do any good
Tell
at
me
all.
where you saw the Lord's hand the most. I mean, you got out of the car, you didn't really think about anyone stopping or flagging them down, like, you know.
Just when I saw Khalik running,
That's when you noticed that he was
that's
there.
when I noticed
So
he was
what
there.
happened if he had, you know, if you hadn't have pulled over at that moment?
Oh, I would be gone. I mean, there was someone posted a video of the car on fire going down the road, and I had no clue I was even on fire at all. I felt no heat. I felt no warmth. Didn't even have my air on. I felt nothing until I stopped and realized I was on fire.
Did they tell you what the cause of it was?
Undetermined.
And what kind of car did you drive?
I drove a 2004 Toyota Camry with 234,000 miles plus on it, and it's a good car. That's why I bought another one.
Exactly. So you know, when you laid your head down that night on your pillow, what was your prayer that night? You know, were you overwhelmed? You know, were there
Thank you.
tears?
Thank you. Thank you for watching over me. Thank you for keeping me safe. Thank you that normally at 6:30 in the morning, that area of the road is back to back and traffic, and that there was really no one on the road. I mean, it could have been a lot worse, but again, God's faithfulness, God's timing, and you know, He cleared the road, and all I could do is thank Him. You know, thank you for your mercy, thank you for your grace, and for loving me.
And you know, when you see people now, you know, where you've seen it in both of the passages, some people's faithful hand, the Lord's hand, through other people, you know, what do you take from it now? Pay it forward, or?
Always pay it forward. If I can help, I will do my best to help. I will share when I can about God's faithfulness. Sitting in the hospital, many a time we would pray with people. We would explain to them where their help comes from. You know, that without him in your life, without my relationship with Christ, I don't know where I would be. I don't know where my children, my other children, my husband would be. I don't know. But that's what we have to share. We have to share who God is, that God will see you through it. He will be your strength. He will hold you. Bad things happen to good people. You know, everybody quotes that God's not going to put anything more than you can handle. When Jed died, our Sunday school lesson, he died on Wednesday. Our Sunday school lesson that Sunday was in, I think, 2 Corinthians. And Paul said, this is more than I can bear. And then later in the chapter, he said, but through the prayers of many, may God be glorified. That's all I can say. Is this going to be tough? But we are to trust him, show others who he is. And that is the only reason that I fully believe that I was protected, that he sent Khalik, that, you know, just a random guy just headed back home.
Absolutely. You know, when you think about it, oh, I lost my question. Just
You're fine.
Every interview.
You're fine.
Khalik is his name?
Mm-hmm. Khalik Bey.
He didn't leave you. He stayed.
He stayed.
You know, I don't know. That's just a random act of kindness. That could be me. That could be me today. You know, that could be any one of us. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, just the fact that he did stop, he didn't have to. He could have said, I'm exhausted, I've been driving, I'm ready to get home to Charleston. Instead, he took the time, he stopped, he risked his own self to put that, because it was raging, to attempt to put it out. And again, he stayed with me until my husband got there and didn't leave. You know, he was kind, we talked about family, we talked just, I have any friends. As my car was on fire. And then again, I'm going to give kudos to Columbia County. I mean, the fire trucks, my alarm went off at 6:30 telling me what time it was, that I had 15 minutes to get to work. And by 7:10, the fire was put out and the police were there. Columbia County was on top of it. And you have to give kudos to the fire department, the sheriff's department, all did their job. And again, they stayed with me, even to the point of, let me drive you up to the gas station and wait on your husband, because I said, just drop me off there or Cracker Barrel. And they said, we'll be happy to.
And you know, when you think about it, this gives you a platform to share more about your faith. If your car caught on fire, I'm sure that, I know that it's been blowing up on Facebook, not to be like, you know,
yeah.
But a lot of people have seen this. And so you have gotten a lot of DMs. How was that?
It's been good just to be able to share, just to be able to say, this is God's faithfulness, that he is faithful to the very end, that he will surround you with peace when you're thinking, I have no way to get to work. This is the car that I drive everywhere. It got me back and forth to Tampa every weekend. But the calmness and the peace, and to be able to share and say, this is what our God can do. He is mightier than anything that's thrown at us by Satan, and I don't want to give him any glory because he's nothing. But God is faithful, and if I can share that, then that's what we'll do.
Absolutely. Well, Miss Candy, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You have this video that you can share with me all the photos. Perfect. I would love any family photos. We can show your sons in there too. But you got a new car.
Yeah, I do. I love it. It drives good. It's low. The mileage is really good. So Gerald Jones did a good job.
What year was the other Camry?
4.
Okay, 2004. Okay.
Yeah, and I had purchased it in like 2020, I think.
Was it silver too?
No, it was navy blue.
So there you go. The full sound there with the woman who was saved from the burning car. Again, quick reminder, we do have Lindsey Graham speaking in about a half hour on the Senate floor now. But before we do that, we do have another story to get to. That's going to be about the debt ceiling, which we could talk about in a minute, actually. But first, we want to get to our top story from last night at 11 o'clock. If you watched that, learning more about a shooting involving a 4-year-old girl that sent her to the hospital. That was in Grovetown. Investigators say that girl is now in critical condition, fighting for her life. The father of the child, Davion Daniels, is charged with possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, on top of second-degree cruelty to children and possessing a machine gun. Our Taylor Martin sat down with the Grovetown Police Department to learn more about what happened that day.
The Grovetown Police Department says this shooting was totally avoidable. Now they're on a mission to drive home the importance of gun responsibility and safety. This is Davian Daniels. We found he served 2 years in a Kentucky prison for receiving stolen property, and that property was a firearm. Now he's facing more serious charges, accused of leaving a gun he is not allowed to own unattended next to his 4-year-old daughter.
This was a totally avoidable incident. By his own admission, he placed the gun on the floor to walk downstairs with a 4-year-old walking around in the house.
The gun had been converted to a fully automatic. He's facing multiple charges after she shot herself at their apartment on Sterlington Drive. Chief Jamie Kitchen says it brings up an important lesson about being a responsible gun owner, and Benjamin Wallace at Defense Solutions says it all comes down to locks for your guns and the 4 main safety rules of handling a gun.
It is probably just as important to teach children firearm safety as much as keeping the firearms out of reach, you know, or out of easy access.
From lock boxes to trigger locks to safes.
There are plenty of options that you can use to keep small children away from firearms, even keeping it on a high shelf. If you have a high shelf in your bedroom, you can keep the firearm there if you want to keep it for easy access, just in case of a home invasion or an emergency.
Crucial steps that weren't taken, leaving a 4-year-old girl in critical condition.
You know, you cannot leave a firearm laying around for a child to access. You know, as your children get older, teach them firearm safety. You know, let them understand, you know, you do not go and pick this up. You do not play with this.
In Georgia, a bill that would have made it mandatory to secure guns in the home never made it out of the subcommittee back in March. The bill would set standards for gun owners and how they must store firearms where children could have access.
Okay, thanks for that, Taylor. And now we'll play the full interviews from that story, which is going to be Chief Jamie Kitchens with the Grovetown Police Department, as well as Benjamin Wallace, who is the manager of Defense Solutions. So those are on about 14 minutes, and then we've got the Senate floor that we can head over to check that out.
So is there anything new from what was released on Monday as far as information goes?
So we were waiting for some confirmation on his criminal history. There were some things that we had to get from Kentucky. We have confirmed that he is in fact a convicted felon, so we were taking that charge today for possession of firearm by a convicted felon based off of his admission that he had possession of the gun, set it down, and then that's when the child picked it up.
Okay, so we do know the child picked it up. Nobody shot the child.
That's correct. Right. Okay. That's correct.
And do you know how she's doing?
As it stands right now, she's still in critical condition. We're speaking with the hospital a couple times a day, just making sure there's not any changes. Obviously, we're hoping that she pulls through, and we're hoping for recovery, but we don't have anything else at this point.
Okay. And is it true that you took yesterday off because the scene was just a little bit much?
We did. It wasn't necessarily. I mean, the scene was what it was, but you know, in law enforcement, you see these things, and you turn right around and you go back to you know, doing whatever task you were doing prior to this call coming in, and there's not a lot of time to decompress on that. So we made the decision that Sergeant Loomer and myself, we were in there, and it was I would say it was an involved scene, and so we just took time to, you know, be able to come back today and, you know, have a clear train of thought and move forward.
Yeah, and so take me back to just when you first got there, and were there more people in the house? Like, what was going on?
No, the house had been secured. Once our officers arrived on scene, they secured the home. Basically, at that point, you just, you know, you set about getting a lay of the land, so to speak, making sure that, you know, what we have been told goes along with what we're seeing once we're on the scene, and then you just begin the evidence collection at that point, and you know, being able to piece together and paint a picture of what happened.
Yeah, and being in law enforcement, you know how important it is to have some type of training, or, you know, with firearms. So, how important is it to maybe have some sort of lockbox or something like that so children can't get to them?
Absolutely. If you have children in the home, at the very minimum, I would have a lockbox or a safe. You know, you obviously don't want to put yourself at a disadvantage if you are, you know, awakened in the middle of the night to somebody coming in your house, and now you got to go through, you know, 7 different features to be able to defend yourself. But this was a totally avoidable incident. By his own admission, he placed the gun on the floor to walk downstairs with a 4-year-old walking around in the house. You know, left a loaded firearm laying there on the floor. I mean, that's totally avoidable. So yes, if you have children in the home, secure the weapon. You know, at the very least, place it somewhere where they can't readily, you know, access it. You know, a cabinet. You know, somewhere. You know, that it's going to. Children are naturally curious, but it's, you know, you want it somewhere where it's going to be a task for them to get to, you know, not just laying on the floor.
Yeah. And does the Grovetown Police Department partner with any organizations or anything like that that helps people get these lock boxes that you know of?
Currently we do not, but you know, that's something that, you know, we will certainly put folks in touch with, you know, who they need to talk to. And periodically we can get the gun locks, you know, that we can provide, you know, if folks want to come up here, pick one up at the police department, we're more than happy to do that for them.
Do you know anything about the mother being in the house maybe, or was she not there?
The mother was not there at the time.
Okay. Right. And anything else that, you know, people might need to know?
Again, I would just, you know, drive the point home that be a responsible gun owner. You know, I mean, that's just, it is in a nutshell. Be responsible. You know, you cannot leave a firearm laying around for a child to access. You know, as your children get older, teach them firearm safety. You know, let them understand, you know, you do not go and pick this up. You do not play with this. This is not a toy. You know, and like I said a little while ago, children are naturally curious. They're going to pick something up and look at it, or, you know, maybe they've seen somebody shooting it, or they've seen somebody holding it, and, you know, they don't understand the consequences. So, you know, just be responsible.
And that also reminds me, so they got pulled over by Columbia County Sheriff's Department by Applebee's, correct?
Yes, yes. They actually, as it was described to us, they actually flagged down the officer. They were in the process of heading towards the hospital, and they saw the deputy and flagged the deputy down. And so that was when they were able to make contact with them and learn that, you know, the child had been shot.
Okay. So do we know that in that process there, so it happened at the house, and I don't know if their first instinct was to take her to the hospital. Were the police called prior, or police were not informed?
No, we were not made aware of it until Columbia County had notified that, you know, they were out with this. Our officers were actually, our officers had the ability to listen to the Columbia County channel. They kind of heard what was going on, and they heard the traffic about the address here in the city, and so our officers immediately started that way. Yeah. And so that's how we got involved.
So God forbid this were to happen to somebody else, should the first step be to call the police department, or start driving to the hospital in the case?
No, I would call 911. You know, generally, especially here in the city, you know, our fire and EMS folks can get to you relatively quickly. There's all manner of issues that can take place when you're trying to drive. Obviously, you know, you're going to be full of adrenaline and fear and all those other things, and none of that is a good combination behind the wheel of a car. In addition to, you know, perhaps trying to tend to injuries or whatever the case may be, there's myriad possibilities where that could go bad. I would tell folks, dial 911, you know, do the best. A lot of times you can stay on the phone and the dispatchers will guide you through certain, you know, steps of first aid. Dispatchers will guide you through CPR. So that's what they're trained to do, and they're very good at it. So I would always suggest folks, you know, unless it's, you know, I can't imagine, you know, a natural emergency, or you know, a natural disaster or something like that, a weather, you know, emergency or something like that. But in general, no, stay home and dial 911, and we'll get to you.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add?
Again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but please be a responsible gun owner.
And so just tell me how important gun safety is just in general when it comes to somebody purchasing one and from there on out.
Yeah. Gun safety is probably the most important thing when it comes to owning and purchasing a firearm. I always give a good spiel to all of our customers when they purchase their first firearm. I tell them the main 4 safety rules. Never point the gun at anything you don't intend to shoot. Be aware of what you're shooting, what's behind it. Be aware of if the round is loaded or not. I mean, if the gun is, crap, hold on.
You can all start over.
Yeah, so I actually have it on a cheat sheet.
Okay.
So, you know, I always give the same spiel. Treat all weapons as if they're loaded. Never trust your memory. It's also very important, never aim at anything you don't intend to shoot or destroy, right? So all the time I get customers, they wave the gun around and I gotta tell them, whoa, whoa, you don't do that, right? Also, always keep your finger out of the trigger. I always tell my customers, when you're handling a gun, pretend you're doing finger guns. Keep that finger straight and away from the trigger, because that's how a lot of accidents happen, when somebody accidentally pulls that trigger because they're resting their finger on it. And then of course, always be sure of what you're shooting at and what's behind it. So, if you're target practicing or something like that, you always want to be aware, okay, do I have a backstop? Am I shooting out in the wilderness? Is there a hill that's going to stop the bullet, or a tree, right? Most gun ranges will have what's called a berm, a big thick hill that will stop all the rounds if you're shooting, say, a paper target, right?
And when it comes to children, how important would you say it is to keep firearms out of the way of children, and also so that children know not to touch them, and kind of how you just explained?
It is probably just as important to teach children firearm safety as much as keeping the firearms out of reach, or out of easy access, right? We teach our children all the time, always look both ways before you cross the street, and still you have more fatalities from vehicle accidents for children than firearms, right? Because the majority of firearms owners are responsible. Generally speaking, most, if not all, of your firearms sold here in the U.S. come with some sort of a safety lock. The lock will go through the gun and essentially lock it out, disabling its function until you unsnake the cord through it. There are also some locks that you put on the trigger that completely stop the firearm from functioning. For instance, you have this Colt AR-15 here. This one here has a trigger lock on the gun. There's no way for you to be able to reach in there to pull the trigger unless you put the code in, take the lock off, see? And you can buy these on Amazon. It's so easy. And then of course you also have gun safes. I've had friends personally that they have so many guns, instead of buying a safe, they convert their closet into a walk-in safe with a deadbolt lock, and they upgrade the door and the hinges and all the screws. There are plenty of options that you can use to keep small children away from firearms, even keeping it on a high shelf. If you have a high shelf in your bedroom, you can keep the firearm there if you want to keep it for easy access, just in case of a home invasion or an emergency.
Yeah, and God, it just slipped my mind what I was going to say. So it is really important to have some type of lock on the gun and just be a responsible gun owner, right?
Yes, you never want to leave the gun unattended, loaded, and generally speaking, if you're going to leave a gun unattended, especially with children around, you either want to take the gun apart or have the gun disabled with some sort of locking mechanism.
Because, guns are just not something to just leave around aimlessly, right? And do you think that gun locks also help when it comes to theft? Because a lot of times, especially in the incident that I'm reporting on, this is a stolen gun. It's not something that he purchased on his own.
And an illegal machine gun too, yeah.
Exactly. So do you think that the locks could also help when it comes to theft in that way?
Generally speaking, the locks do not prevent theft at all, because if somebody steals the gun and has a lock on there, they can drill through the lock. The number one reason, and especially for our customers here at the store, the number one reason why I hear somebody has gotten their gun stolen is they left it in their car. Remember people, your car is not a holster. Either lock it up at home or have it on your person. Otherwise, it's free game. All it takes is for somebody to smash open the window and they can jimmy open any glove box or center console with a pry bar. It's super easy.
So then that kind of just reinforces not leaving your gun unattended.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add about the lock boxes or just safety in general when it comes to children and guns?
Again, I definitely want to emphasize, you know, when you believe it's an appropriate age to teach your children gun safety, if you are one of those people that, you know, you want your children to learn how to shoot, whether for sporting purpose or for self-defense in the future, is just like with here in Georgia, we have the Brady law, where at 15 years old, teenagers can learn to drive, get their learner's permit, and work their way up. I think if parents that are pro-gun or use guns, or at least even have one gun for home defense, and they have a child around, they need to teach them, hey, this is dangerous, just like a car. This is a dangerous thing. It's a tool, though. It can be used for good or it can be used for bad. But it's up to the parent to teach their children. My boss, he has several children, and he was a police officer for a very long time. And he always emphasized that this is daddy's tool. You do not touch daddy's tool or you will get in big, big, big trouble, or you could get very, very hurt, right? And he never had a problem with his kids touching his guns because he taught them the responsibility of a firearm at a younger age.
So there you go. Real quick, if you're watching on YouTube, we're going to switch the stream real quick so we can move on to the next one. But we'll be back in just a second.